G'day everyone, we're back cheese making and we're doing it a bit differently this time. So I'll run through it. We'll skip over a lot of the steps we won't skip over the steps. We'll shorten the filming of the steps, so this is a bit shorter than it need be. If you really want to see the step-by-step instructions, I'll link to the other videos where we go through it. But today, what are we making? Well, we're making 2 cheeses because we want to make the most of our milk. So the first one we'll be making is Wensleydale. Now this will be our 3rd time making Wensleydale. First time we used the recipe from the Mad Millie kit and we made a mistake, and it was what we termed wrecked Wensleydale. But believe it or not, it was actually a nice cheese, and we're just finishing the last of it now. So even though it was wrecked, don't sniff that, the dog's trying to steal the milk. So even though it was wrecked Wensleydale, it actually turned out to be quite nice. We made another Wensleydale and followed the instructions correctly this time, and it was a really, really nice cheese. Wasn't it, Rufus? You liked it. It melted beautifully on toast. So we're going to do that again. But the difference is we're going to use some of this. This is lipase enzyme, and it's meant to improve the texture and flavour of the milk if we're using pasteurised milk. We've got an aromatic culture, which we didn't have last time, and that's meant to suit the Goudas much better, according to the guru, Gavin Weber. So we'll bring that up to room temperature, which is what we need to do with that. One of the other issues I had with the Gouda that we made, and I'll link to that one as well, is it didn't set very well using this rennet. No idea why. So I had to use some extra rennet in the tablet form to set it. So I thought before we start this time, we'd better test the rennet. And I did. I put a few drops in this little glass of milk, and look at that. It's worked. So we have junket now. So I might eat that, see what it's like. But we've tested the rennet, we know the rennet works. And we're going to be following the recipe as exactly as we can, with the addition of the lipase and the correct culture. So we're going to have to get 1/4 cup of water, 3 lots of this, 1 for the lipase, 1 for the rennet, and 1 for the citric acid, which we will add at different times. First, we're going to have to get our milk to temperature. It's non-homogenized pasteurized milk, and there's 10 litres of it. So just getting my recipe. We'll use 1/8 teaspoon of aromatic mesophilic culture, 2.5 ml of calcium chloride in 1/4 cup of water, 2.5 ml of single strength rennet in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water from the kettle, been boiled, now cooled. And we're going to need some salt at the end. So let's get started. We'll do our rennet first. We need 2.5 ml of that. I'm going to use one of my little markers here. 1 ml. Oh, they're hard to read. 2 ml there. So I've given this a really good shake. Alright, that's 2.5 of rennet. It lasts without. Now we put the rennet next to it so we know which one's which. It's another 1/4 cup, which we're going to do our calcium chloride in, which is there. I might use just a spoon for this because it's not that critical. That's a 1/4 teaspoon, so we'll do 2 of those. By the way, I have sterilised all of this with alcohol or boiling water, or both. One of the other things I've also got is I have this sodium percarbonate. This is the major constituent in most sanitizing chemicals used in the food industry, I believe. So I've mixed a couple of tablespoons of that up in a pot of water, but I'm not going to skip the alcohol. They're going in there just to make sure that they're sanitized, and then we'll make sure with the alcohol, because we really want to make sure everything is nice and clean. And finally, we'll get our base. Oh, and how much of this do we need to use? 1/8 of a teaspoon per 8 to 10 litres of milk. So we'll get our 1/8 teaspoon. There it is. Just a tiny fraction more. Stir that in, and that can go back in the freezer. We're ready to start heating the milk. Okay, so we've just put the heat on here. It's on fairly high for now. Once we've got it a little bit warm, we'll turn it right down so we don't burn it. And we've got to raise the temperature of this to 30 degrees, I think, from memory. But one of the other things we didn't do in our Wreck Wensleydale is whisk it all up to get the cream amalgamated. What would you say? Get the cream dissolved? Anyway, to get the cream through the milk, and we had these lumps of cream like that in the cheese, which didn't affect the taste, but it affected the texture, and it wasn't overly pleasant. I would say cultured butter, but the taste was fine. So that was another mistake we made in our Wreck Wensleydale. So what we've got to do is make sure we've actually dissolved all of the cream within the milk. And we can do that while we're heating it initially. So this will take a little bit of time because 10 litres of milk is quite a bit. So while I'm doing this, I'll tell you what we're doing with the second cheese. One of the things that really annoys me with cheese making is you end up with litres and litres of whey and nothing to do with it. So I've been using it as a fertiliser, put it out on the plants, give it a bit of calcium. But then we tried Whey Ricotta, and it was absolutely superb, wasn't it, camera person? Yeah. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to make a double batch of Whey Ricotta with the whey that's left over from this. So in that way, pun intended, we'll end up with 2 lots of cheese and reduce our wastage. And as I said, Whey Ricotta is absolutely delicious. Recommend you give it a shot. So we'll come back in a minute when this is up to temperature. So I thought we'd just have a little taste of this junket. That curd is set really nicely. Yeah, that's not bad. Rather tasteless, it's just solidified milk. Normally you'd add sugar and some flavouring, but it's all a learning journey, isn't it? Which is what it is with the cheese. Right, it's now up to temperature. We're going to add our 1/8 of a teaspoon of mesophilic culture. This is the aromatic mesophilic. Sprinkle it over. We'll let that hydrate for 5 minutes or so. And also we want to, at this point, add in our, what's it called again? Lipase. And we'll stir all that through in a few minutes. Okay, we're mixing it in now for a minute. Just mixing from bottom to top and top to bottom. Getting that mesophilic culture and the lipase, was it? Lipase, yeah, I think it's lipase. Anyway, I said earlier what it is. And that's meant to help a lot if we're using pasteurised milk, which we have to. Because I'm not willing to use raw milk. I know a lot of people are quite happy with raw milk or prefer raw milk. But it's pasteurised for a reason. Coming from a farming background, if you've ever seen the back end of a cow, you don't want to you don't want to drink unpasteurised milk. Okay, we now have to leave this for 45 minutes, I think it said. I'll check that, but we'll set a timer. Pop this back on the bench. The culture's been ripening for 45 minutes. The temperature's just a tad above 30 degrees, and we're going to add our calcium chloride and stir that through. Just need sort of a mix to make sure it's all in there with the, all through the milk. And now we're going to add our rennet and stir for no more than 1 minute. That should do it. We now cover, let it set for another 45 minutes. Right, it's been 45 minutes. We check for a clean break. So if you come in and have a look, I'll stick the knife in. And look at that. It's a nice clean break. So it's ready to slice. And to do so, we shall use the wonderful cheese harp that Naz built for me. Slide it in. You see? Let's take that out. Spin it around. It spins in the pot, so we've got to make sure we go all the way around. There it is, and out we come. Now we've got to do the cross cuts. So across we go. Ones at the very bottom will be too big, but that's okay, we'll sort that out. A cheese harp makes it a lot easier to get those cuts in the horizontal. Now comes the fun bit. We've got to bring the temperature back up to 32 degrees Celsius and stir continuously for 2 hours. So I'll put a very low heat on there. Is that the right one? Yep. We're sitting at about 30 degrees at the moment. I'll check that with the digital thermometer because it's more accurate. Yeah, it's sat at 30 degrees quite nicely the whole time, so we just got to bring it up another couple of degrees while stirring. So if you come in and have a look, you can see some of the larger pieces from the bottom. We'll just chop them in half and we just gently stir. Now I've got to go to work in a little while, so the curmudgeon camera person is going to take over the stirring, and all we need to do is just gently stir from top to bottom. Bring those large lumps up. And break them up a little bit. All right, 2 hours of stirring. It's time to get an audio book out. And this is half an hour in, and we can see a significant difference to the curd. Got to stop it from clumping. But the pieces of curd are much smaller now. Not get smaller yet. So that's half an hour in. 90 minutes later. Another half hour of stirring and we're done. Just very gently to break the clods up. So this has been stirred for 2 hours, non-stop almost. And we've now let it settle for 5 minutes. So it's time to start making our other cheese. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 6 litres of the whey out of here, because we have to drain this now anyway, and pop it into this other pan. It'd be hard to measure 6 litres, but that's half. Doesn't have to be terribly exact. Just want to make sure we're getting enough. So it should be about 6 litres.
Yep.
Because we'll try and make as much ricotta as we can. So we might as well drain this in here. Now, got very clean hands. Oops, a couple of bits dropped in there. Won't hurt the cottage cheese at all, the ricotta. Get as much of those curds out as we can, not wanting to waste any. Now, these curds have to drain for 2 hours. Oh, that made a lot of whey. So I've just dropped them in the pot there. they'll drain for 2 hours, but every 15 minutes we have to go in and break the curds up again. So we'll set a timer for that and get on to our cotta. So here's our whey, probably about 8 litres or maybe even 9. We're going to add 3 cups of milk. This is just a mix of our non-homogenised and our homogenised milk. Now we've got to heat this up to 93 degrees. And that will take a little while. We don't have to stir it or anything, we can just let it heat. First 15 minutes, and we'll show you this just once, but what we need to do is open it up, all covered so we don't get bugs and things in there, and we've got to crumble it a bit. So I might actually take it out of there. Very clean hands, and I've sprayed them with alcohol as well. And we just break the curds up a little bit. If I drop any, Rufus is going to get it. Yeah, this is very full, so it's a bit difficult. I can hear chops licking down there. Okay, mostly done. There we go. So we'll set the timer for another 15 minutes, cover it back up. And back in it goes. Right, another 15. So now it's time to add 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar. We'll stir that through and see if it's enough. Come in and have a look. We should see the curds start to form, if we've got enough in there. Might need some more, I think. Starting to form, but I think we'll add a little bit more. It should be plenty. That's it. So I just needed that bit extra, and now we're getting the curds forming. So there's our curds. Just let that go for a little bit longer. Just wondering if that's enough acid in there. Don't think we're going to get any more than that. And now we have to drain it, which is going to be hard. So if you look at the colander, I've actually put a lacquer band around the bottom just to stop popping out. And we'll drain all of this into there. Let that drain through. I don't know, we're getting a reasonable amount out of that. We are finally nearly there. We need to now salt our curds. So we're going to take them out of the strainer there, a few spare ones. Empty them into this bowl. It's been 2 hours of crumbling and just draining in the colander. There we go. Use the sunlight for this. We need 1.5 tablespoons of salt. This is non-iodized salt. There's our half. 1/2. And 1. And now with clean hands, we're going to mill that through, making sure we get our salt all the way through it. Have a look at that, nice and crumbly. All right, that should do us. It's nicely crumbled up. It's quite dry now. So now we need to put it into our cheesecloth lined press. No, you're not having them. It looks full, but once we press it, it'll go down quite a bit. Let's get those nice dry curds into here. I need a bigger cheese mold, cheese press. Okay. Now I always have a trouble with the cheese going wonky, so I'm going to push it down straight like that. Fold our cheesecloth over it. Put our thing on top. I'm going to pop it in there because we get a fair bit of whey coming out. And we need to initially 5 kilograms for 30 minutes. We wind it up to our 5 mark. There it is, 5 kilograms, 30 minutes. We'll come back, we flip it over, redress it, and pop it back in for a longer press. So it's been 30 minutes at 5 kilos. So we're just going to take it out, redress it, and then repress it. So we'll take our follower out. Lift our cheese out. And we will carefully unwrap it because it won't be too firm just yet. Turn it over gently. Get the creases out. Much as we can anyway. Back in it goes. Put our follower on top. And now it gets quite a heavy pressing at 20, just check that, 22.5 kilos. Not sure we can measure it that accurately, but we'll get as close as we can. We've got to do this for 12 hours. Then we turn over and we press again for another 12 hours. So I won't show that second pressing, but I will film taking it out. So it's the one, this is the first one. We'll do exactly the same thing again. And that's as far as my scale goes. So I'm kind of guessing that's 22 kilograms roughly. And we shall just let that sit for 12 hours. Our ricotta has been draining for 3 hours, so it's time to take it out and mill in. It says 1.5 teaspoons of salt, but we did a little bit extra milk and whey, but I still think 1.5 tablespoons might be a bit much. We'll put in tablespoons, teaspoons. 1.5 tablespoons would definitely be too much. So there we go. We'll try it with 1 teaspoon and add more if we feel it needs it. So 1 teaspoon. Clean hands. Ooh, nice texture. Make sure it's really well mixed through and our lumps are broken up. At this point you can add a little bit of cream if you'd like it creamier, but I don't think we want to do that because it was really nice last time just as it was. We just add a little taste. I'm just adding about 1/2 teaspoon of extra salt in there. We'll mill that through. It's a lovely texture. And then we'll have a taste. Seems to have Rufus approval. Oh, that's nice. Camera person? It's good, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Rufus? Down there on my leg. So there we have it. This is just made from leftovers, so pretty much for free except for the few cups of milk. Wensleydale has to press for the next 10 hours or so. Then we'll turn over and press it for another 12. Then we'll leave it out to air dry for a while and then wax it. Be back in a while. 24 hours later, we've had it in the press, so we're just going to take it out now. Let's reduce the pressure a bit. There we go. It can now go in the sink. Still some whey coming out of it. Nice and clear, which is what we want. And let's put that in there. Unwrap the cheesecloth. And here we have what looks like a really nicely formed cheese. Just on a rack. We need to air dry this now for 2 or 3 days. Then we will wax it. It'll shrink a little bit more, but not a huge amount. So that's a really nice shape for cheese. I like having it nice and deep like this. And hopefully in about 3 months, or even longer if we can manage it, we'll get to try it. Roof, you can't eat that yet. In fact, you're not going to eat that. I am. Little cheese dog. Anyway, what do you reckon? You like Wensleydale? I do. Came out great last time. About 6 months we're going to try and leave this and then we'll try it. The ricotta came out superb again. Really nice as a dessert with just a little drizzle of honey over the top. And most importantly, it makes use of all that wasted whey. It's a nice little poem, isn't it? Wasted whey. My whey is wasted through wasted whey. Anyway, please, we've got giggles coming from the background. Please like, subscribe, and importantly, hit that bell icon. Really helps me out. And it doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me. Please. I'll get the cheese out somewhere to dry while you go off and enjoy life, and I'll catch you in the garden. You want cheese?